How producers get paid from TV and film placements. So you're probably a music producer, a beat maker. Of course you are if you're watching this video, and you've been wondering how to get your beats placed on television film. You got a whole hard drive, beats just sitting collecting digital dust bunnies instead of collecting residual royalty money. So first, before I get started in telling you how to do this, I need you to like, comment, and subscribe. You like this video, you comment, and if you like the content, make sure you subscribe. I got more videos like this, but your help pushing the video out into the algorithm so more producers could get this information and get the help that you're getting in the free game that I'm giving you as well, which is spreading good karma. And when you spread good karma, it always comes back to you. Okay, so first, I want to talk about how I got started, and then I'm going to get into how you get paid as a music producer when your beats get placed in television. But first, I want to speak from experience because it took me the experience to really learn the game. So the first thing that happened was I had a producer, a big homie who was a mentor to me named Cinematic, RIP Cinematic. And Cinematic, I showed up to the studio one day. I was invited by my homie who was an artist, Trap House, and Trap House, RIP to Trap House too. They just both recently passed right before and after COVID. But if it weren't for these guys, I wouldn't have never understood how television film music worked at the level that I do now. So, and even before I ran into my guy, Cinematic, I had a homie, Fingers McGee, shout outs to Fingers, who gave me the understanding of what television film licensing was. So this is before I even knew to look in the direction of it. He first, made me aware that it even existed and that it was a thing. So when Trap invited me to the studio, I had met him at this beat battle that I was doing, Red Bull Big Tune. It was in Phoenix. This was right after I got fired from my 9 to 5, and that's a whole nother story. I'll talk about that in another video. But my plan was to do music full time, so I set it up to where I can get fired from my job, and so I can get on unemployment and work my way into doing music full time. So that same week, I believe it was same week or month that I got fired, I got into this beat battle, Red Bull Big Tune, played some beats. Trap was there. Trap was like, yo, come see me at the studio, man. And so the second time he invited me, I showed up. And then I seen my dude, Cinematic, Mike Muhammad, who was working at the studio, and I didn't know. And I had met him about probably 9 years prior, working on a project for this artist in my area in Phoenix. And so he was producing on the project too. So it had been that long since I seen him. And when I seen him, I was like, oh man, Cinematic, what's going on? And so, we caught up, and he was telling me that they were doing television film music, which was perfect because years earlier, Fingers had told me about it, and I sent him beats, but nothing was placed just yet. He was barely cracking the code on the game at the time too. He had his foot in the door, but he was still getting a wider and larger understanding of how the game worked. So Cinematic ended up introducing me to a guy named Romy, my dude Rob Miller, Track Shack Studios on Instagram. He's always talking about television, film music, and giving games, so make sure you guys check him out. But so when he introduced me to Romy, Romy had already established himself. I think he was about four years in the game at that point, and he was already making a living off of television film music. And so we worked out a deal to where I could go through him and his deal. He had a deal directly with a publishing company who handled all the music for certain television networks. So it was perfect. And so we worked out a deal, a co-writing deal. He was like, I'll bring you in as a co-writer so that you can understand the game and learn how it works. And then, do whatever you want from there. So he taught me the format, the structure of how the beat should be structured, which was a game changer. It's probably why my music wasn't placed before. Once he showed me this format, I started getting placements all kind of ways. So once he showed me that, and then I submitted my music to him, and he added it with his catalog. So he essentially let me add my music to his catalog. He was submitting every week, every 2 weeks or something like that, new beats. So I went crazy with it. I know I probably irritated him because I was sending beats left and right. I sent like 20 at one time. I know for sure, probably more than that. So he's probably like, this guy, man, this kid is hungry. So I had a whole routine. This was 2009, by the way. I was on Reason 4. And I would get up. I had a heavy bag outside my apartment on the balcony. And what I would do is I would get up every morning. I would start a beat. And in between working on I said I'm gonna do 10 beats a day. In between working on the beats, I would go and I would hit the punching bag. I would do my rounds. So I had a whole routine. So I know I was sending him a bunch of beats at one time, probably too many that he even knew what to do with. And he called me out on a couple of them, like, yo, bro, these patterns are the same. You got to switch up your patterns. So he was mentoring me and showing me the ropes at the time. And so my first placement, though, happened like, let's say I started submitting beats in like June, July. I was already getting placements in, I think it was August, September. And so I heard the first one though was October. So in October, the girlfriend I had at the time, she was watching the Tyra show and she called me and was like, yo, I heard your music. I heard your music. I heard your beat on the Tyra show. So I was excited. I was like, oh man, I got to check it out. So the rerun came on. I went and listened and I heard my beat. I was like, man, that's crazy. So he had already told me that I had got placements on the Tyra show though. He was like, yo, we got the tracks placed. It's on the Tyra show. They accepted it. And so, and this was different though, because in other situations, usually if you're going through a music publishing company, they necessarily don't tell you. You don't know until your cue sheets come. And then you start seeing the placements on your ASCAP cue sheets, or if you're with BMI. I'm with ASCAP personally. So this all happened. So from that point on, I kept submitting music. And then I moved out to California probably 6 months later. And that's when I seen my first check come in. And it was like that. I moved to California in March. That April, I seen my first royalty check come in 2010. So I was excited. It wasn't a lot. But this guy, Romy, showed me his first check was like $20,000. He had been submitting for a minute, and then he finally got paid. And I think he told me from the jump it's going to take 6 to 9 months to see your first check. So it took me 6 months. And so him though, I think it took him like 9 months, and then his first check was like 20,000. And he showed it to me. He framed it. I'm like, yo, bro, that's crazy. So it was motivational to me. And sometimes as producers, we don't believe that we can do it unless we see somebody else do it. That's why it's important to have a mentor or a coach. So anyway, I talk a lot more about this in my audio book called Music Monopoly. I'm going to link you to it here. A lot of producers don't know about it because I don't push it that much, but I did this audio book a while ago, and I filled it up with all of the game that you need to get your music placed on television film. So check it out. The link is in the description. It's called Music Monopoly. And let me give you some game on that. I called it Music Monopoly because I understood that like publishing and your beats are property, they're intellectual property, right? So it's no different than having a home. Every beat that you create, that you add to your catalog, you got to look at it like it is a home or some type of real estate, because it can generate income just like real estate does. There's music catalogs right now that are generating more than someone's real estate catalog, their real estate portfolio. I bet you if you look at Michael Jackson's assets, right? Let's say before he passed, or even probably more after he passed, all of the publishing that he owned collectively was bringing in way more money than probably some of the real estate agents or people that are flipping homes that that have a couple of houses. That's how important it is to understand what you're dealing with when you're dealing with your music as intellectual property. Because depending on where you place it, it could grow money and income for you and work for you. You turned it into like your employee, right? You go from putting in work on the beat and then sending it out to work for you. That's the whole idea of it. So if it's sitting on your hard drive and just collecting dust, then you're not doing yourself or the beat any justice. So anyway, I learned the format and I started submitting more and more, and I got a bunch of placements. And next thing you know, my royalty checks after that kept growing and growing, right? So how we get paid though is, so once we submit the music, you could do it through a music library, a music publisher. If you have your music publishing set up right to where you're a writer and a publisher with ASCAP and or BMI, you can only choose one of them. So you want to go and become a writer or a publisher, and probably both. I started off as a writer because I wanted to understand the game. And then I ended up becoming a publisher and opening up a publishing account as well so that I could act directly with the music supervisors to get my music placed. So, anyways, easier when you're first starting out to go through a music library or a music publisher because they already have all the relationships in place and they do all of the legwork, all the metadata and all that for you. You want to take baby steps into this game because it's a lot to uncover and a lot to understand. If you try to jump in head first, you may succeed, but it's going to be a lot to learn. It's going to be a steep learning curve. So take steps in learning it and growing into that. So anyway, moving forward. So I started off as a writer, and how it works is if you look at every song as a dollar, right? Let's just say, or 100%, however you want to break it down. Let's say 100%. So the publisher who's putting the music, getting it to the music supervisors and getting it into the films, that's the publisher. They're actually publishing the work. They own 50% once you do that deal. You as a producer own 50% because you're considered a writer when it comes to television, film, music publishing. Don't get it confused. Like some people are like, well, why am I a writer? Because you're writing the music. Even if it's instrumental, it has no vocals, you're still considered a writer. All parts responsible for the music creation are considered writers. So anyway, with that being said, so the writer share is what you get. And so as a producer though, once we create the music, before we do any deals, we own 100% of the pie. Right. So I'm the producer, I'm the writer and the publisher. So I own the writer share and the publisher share of the music. But once I do a deal with somebody and I say, hey, can you go work this for me and put it in somewhere that can grow money? I start giving out percentages. So Romy told me this and it made sense. So he was like, yo, usually you want to do deals 50-50. And he said 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. And that changed my mindset when it came to doing deals in television film. Because as producers, we love our music so much that we may think that, oh, we did all the musical work. I need to make my whole, I want to make the whole 100%. But if you don't have the relationships to get the music to the company and you don't have the relationships to get it to the music supervisor, then you need to work those percentages and make them work, leverage those so that it can get to where you want it to go quicker. And you're expanding your network at that, and you're building relationships and knowledge and wisdom on how the game works, right? So that's how it works in a nutshell. So once your music gets placed, so let's say that this show accepts it. So when the Tyra show accepts it, what they do is they get it to the editors start putting it into the pieces of the film or the show. That's why it's called sync, because you're syncing music, you're syncing audio with visual. You're syncing music with a picture. So once that's done, they're going to go through what are called cue sheets. And on the cue sheets, they're going to say, hey, we use this much of a music. So Brahma Guru, we use 20 seconds of his music for this episode. Then we use another 30 seconds for this episode. Then they're going to turn that into your PROs, right? And your pros are the ASCAPs, the BMIs, the CSACs, right? They're basically performance rights organizations. They do the work as far as collecting your royalties and making sure that you get paid when your work is used in the visual media. So once you sign, you want to do that first. Sign up with them before you even try to submit anything, because if your music gets accepted and you don't have that, that means you're not prepared. They might be like, okay, well, we can't use your music then. So they'll go find somebody else. So make sure you register as a writer first. You could do a publisher later, like I said. But anyway, and then once that happens, they collect your royalties and you get paid every quarter from your music. So I'm doing this video because a producer in the comments said, yo, can you talk about publishing and licensing? So I felt that this would be a great segue to help you understand your how to get your beats placed in television and film, in your role as a producer when it comes to that. So I hope this video helped you and gave you clarity on how to get into the television film music game. Like I said, the best way to do it, the fastest way to get it is to go through a music library, or a music publisher. Another fast way is the route that I went, which is collabing with another producer who already has those relationships, which makes you a co-producer, aka a co-writer. So that way, and you split percentages with them, and they work your music into their catalog that they already have the relationships and things in place for. So anyway, you definitely want to start doing that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments so that I can answer them in another video and break down some more game if you need it. I did leave the Music Monopoly audiobook in the description. This is something that you could download and start listening to while you're working out, while you're driving to work, anytime. That's why I did it in audiobook format, because we're music producers and we love listening. So I put some dope beats behind it too, so that you could groove to it while you're learning how the television film game works. You definitely want to learn the format that your music needs to be in order to start getting placements. And I have an audiobook on that as well called The C-Section, which I've also left in the description that you can grab right now so you can start learning the format in which your beats need to be in to start getting placements faster. Okay, so go ahead and check that out. Also, check out this video right here where I break down a crazy G-Funk banger that I made, and I show you all of the plugins, every element, every instrument. I break it all down right here from beginning to end, top to bottom, so you can understand how to arrange your music and layer sounds and create new sounds out of other sounds. Okay, check it out right here.